Tonight's story is a quiet one. It begins, as many do, with grief. A boy, a bedroom, a chair that rocks when it shouldn't. What follows isn't loud. It doesn't scream. It waits. If you've ever woken in the dark, unable to move, if you've ever felt breath that wasn't yours on your cheek, then this story might feel familiar. So settle in. Let your breathing slow. Let your guard down, just a little. And whatever you do, don't fall asleep with your feet uncovered. This is She Sits at the End of the Bed. Chapter 1. The Rocking Chair That Creaked Like Breath. I will not tell you what time it was when the darkness first folded its crooked legs at the edge of my mattress. Time had become a vague and stuttering thing in the days after she died, like a lantern flickering at the far end of a hallway you were never meant to reach. It is enough to say that it was night, the kind of night that swallows even the memory of light, and I was awake without being able to move. Not awake in the usual sense. No, I was trapped beneath a tide of sleep that had frozen my limbs but spared my mind. A mind that, I assure you, wanted only to scream. It was in that hush, that terrible hush, where even the wind seemed to hold its breath, that I first heard the creaking. Not loud, not sudden, just a soft, slow sigh of wood upon wood, the sound of a chair rocked gently, endlessly by invisible feet. My grandmother's chair. It had been hers since before I was born, a great ugly thing of dark walnut and rose-print cushions now faded into the colour of dried blood. It was meant to be given to the thrift shop or thrown away. My mother said so. She even hired someone to haul it out of the old woman's bedroom after the funeral. But I saw it again that night, squatting in the corner across from my bed as though it had never been moved, as though it had never left. And it was rocking. I could not lift my head. I could not scream. I could only lie still and stare at that corner where the chair moved back and forth in rhythm with my heart. An old, tired heart that had never belonged to me until that moment. It had her rhythm now. It beat like hers. Back and forth, like breath, like breath. I wanted to believe it was the wind, that my mother had simply been mistaken and the chair had never been taken at all. That the ticking silence and heavy shadows were playing tricks on a boy who had cried too hard and slept too little. But then I saw her. She was not sitting in the chair. Not yet. She stood behind it, as though uncertain of her own return. Her outline was vague, not quite part of the room, not quite apart from it either. Her hair hung longer than I remembered, tangled and thin like spiderwebs in fog. Her nightgown was the same one they had buried her in, white with a faded blue collar and a hem that reached her ankles, except now it floated just slightly, as if stirred by some slow and breathless wind I could not feel. She didn't move toward me. She didn't speak. She only looked. The whites of her eyes had turned a kind of glazed yellow, like old candle wax, and they were not focused on me. Not exactly. It was as though she was watching around me, through me, looking for something just behind the veil of who I was. My chest burned with the need to scream. My fingers twitched against the mattress but would not lift. My tongue lay heavy and cold in my mouth, a useless thing. I don't know how long I stared at her. Time in that room stretched, warped, bent into strange shapes. The shadows moved, but not like they were meant to. They crept sideways across the ceiling, folding into themselves, unpeeling again. I think I heard her humming at one point, a little nursery tune she used to sing when I had trouble sleeping as a child. But now it was out of tune, hollow, a lullaby wrapped in something dry and wrong, as though it had been sung too long in the throat of the earth. And then, just like that, she was gone. The chair was empty again, still, and I could move. I screamed then, oh yes. My voice ripped from my throat like splinters from old wood. My mother burst into the room, flicked the light on, held me as I sobbed. She said I'd had a nightmare, that it was grief, that it was normal. I did not argue. I did not tell her the chair had been gone before, but now in the bright morning there it was again, right where she'd left it. I did not sleep the next night. I tried. God knows I tried. I lay on my back staring at the ceiling, watching the moonlight crawl like a pale animal along the walls. Every time my eyes fluttered, I felt the weight pressing down. Not yet, I whispered to myself. Not yet, not yet. But sometime between the strokes of silence, I drifted. And again it happened. The paralysis came first. that dead heaviness like being pinned beneath 1,000 shadows, then the creaking, then her. But this time she sat in the chair. She was not smiling. Her hands, thin and translucent as parchment, were busy knitting something with needles that clicked even though I saw no yarn. Her eyes did not leave mine. She did not blink. She did not need to. I tried to plead. My lips trembled against invisible bonds. No sound came. I felt her looking through my skin, peeling it back with every unspoken word. "You were always quiet," she whispered, though her lips did not move. "Always mine." And I knew that she was not visiting me. She was waiting, each night closer, each night more real. And soon I think she means to stay. Chapter 2. Each night closer. There are certain truths a person will not admit by daylight, not because they are false, but because the light makes them ridiculous. My mother said grief is a fog that lifts in time. That one must process, that word so sterile it feels like it belongs to machines and not boys who wake choking in the dark. But grief is not fog. It is not gentle. It is a mouth, and mine was being devoured from the inside out. I did not tell her that the chair had moved. Not far, just a little, a few inches forward, as though someone had rocked in it all night and it had shuddered closer to the bed by accident. But I noticed. I always noticed. And when I went to touch it, the cushion was warm. I avoided sleep. I tried. I pinched my arms until they bruised. I read until my eyes watered. I played classical music on my phone beneath the covers, tiny sounds to fill the silence where her breath used to settle. Still, sleep came. Not like a friend, but like a needle, creeping in under the skin. And so did she. The third night I opened my eyes and found her standing in the doorway. This time the moon was high and full, and the light bled through the curtains like something wounded. It lit her face. She was changing. Her skin no longer looked like skin. It had grown translucent in patches, waxy and blue-veined like the flesh of drowned things. Her nightgown was soaked at the hem. I could smell mildew, earth, worms perhaps. And she smiled at me. It was the smile she had worn the day she showed me how to carve initials into the bark of the sycamore out back. The smile from when she told me we never really leave, not if someone remembers us. But it was wrong now. Too wide, too dry. That smile never moved again for the rest of the night. It stretched and froze, stiff as a portrait. She did not walk toward me. Not that night. But I could feel the space between us collapse. Every moment, like inches being unwound from some invisible spool. Her presence curled into the corners of my room, underneath the bed, into the folds of the curtains, soaking the very air. The creaking began again, but this time it wasn't just the chair. It was the floorboards. Slow, deliberate. Creak, creak. I wanted to die, if only to escape her gaze. By morning, she was gone. But the chair had moved again. Closer, not even subtly anymore. Now it sat directly at the foot of my bed, like a guard on vigil. My mother didn't notice. She was on the phone. She told me to eat something. I did not eat. I watched the chair. I watched it like it would grow legs and walk. And maybe it would have, if it hadn't already. That day I did something I wasn't supposed to. I went into her room. My grandmother's room had remained shut since the funeral, a polite silence wrapped in dust. My mother said she couldn't bear to clear it out just yet. I said nothing, but the thought of that room unguarded sent ice down my spine. And yet I opened the door. It smelled of talcum powder, dried lavender, and something else, like rusting teeth. The rocking chair was gone from the corner. Of course it was, but her dresser stood untouched. On it her comb, still heavy with grey hairs, a cracked porcelain bowl she used for peppermint lozenges, a single long glove, stained at the fingertips, and a book. Not quite a journal, not quite a prayer book. It had no title. Inside there were handwritten notes in her crooked looping script, but they weren't letters, not really. They were invocations, instructions, rituals, pages of lines like, "A child is closest to the veil. The mouth that forgets is safe. If you listen, you will hear her breathing through the floor." I turned to the last page. It simply read, "He must not wake up too soon." I closed the book. My hands shook. Her chair, sat patiently at the foot of my bed again that night. The fourth night, she stood at the side of the bed. I could not turn my head to look fully, but I felt her beside me, the way the cold pressed against only the left half of my body. The way the mattress dipped slightly, as though the air itself had become heavier. Her breath brushed my cheek. She smelled like earth, like basement corners where secrets rot. I tried to scream. My throat clenched shut. And then, for the first time, she spoke. Not aloud, not like people do. She spoke from somewhere deeper, beneath thought. "You'll be very warm once I'm inside." I wept. My tears spilled sideways into my ear. I could not even blink them away. "You always wanted to be close to me," she whispered, voice thinner than mist. "And now we'll never be apart." The mattress bent. A hand brushed my chest, weightless and yet heavy, like fog turned to stone. "Not yet," she said, and I knew she wasn't speaking to me. She was speaking to herself. I woke up in the morning drenched in sweat and cold as bone. My mouth tasted like soil. The chair had not moved again. Because now it didn't need to. She was already beside me. She was learning how to wear me. And I was learning how to disappear. Chapter 3. The mouth beneath my voice. There is a kind of horror too quiet for words. Not the shriek, not the chase, not the sudden knife of terror in a dark alley, but something slower, more intimate. A horror that breathes, that waits, that curls its fingers inside you gently, lovingly, like a grandmother patting your cheek before bedtime and saying, "You'll understand when you're older." That's what she said to me once, and now I am older, but I do not understand. The 5th night, she came closer still. I had stopped telling my mother anything by then. She wouldn't hear me if I did. She lived in a world of casseroles and condolences, phone calls and floral cards. "You just miss her," she said once, when she found me staring too long at the hallway where my grandmother's scent still lingered. "That's all it is, missing." But I wasn't missing her. She was right here. She was never gone. That night, I woke into the paralysis with a kind of weary acceptance. My arms did not fight, my throat did not tighten, my eyes opened with the dread of someone returning to a sentence they'd only just begun serving. The moonlight was brighter than it had ever been. Too bright. It filled the room like floodwater, illuminating every thread, every crack, every surface that had once belonged only to the living. And in that silvery glare, I saw her. She was on the bed, not at the foot, not beside it, on it, kneeling. She hovered over my chest, her head tilted, one hand resting softly on the space just above my heart. Her eyes were closed, as if in prayer. Her hair hung long now, too long, spilling over my arms, my ribs, the pillow. Her mouth moved. Not lips. The whole thing, jaw unhinged slightly, tongue pressed forward, mouthing words I couldn't hear, words I wasn't meant to hear. But I felt them. She was whispering into me, into my open mouth. Imagine being filled not with air, but with someone else's breath. That was what it felt like. The pressure, the wrongness. I wanted to gag, I wanted to bite, I wanted to die. But I could only lie still while her invisible chant poured through my lips and settled behind my teeth. I felt something pass over my tongue. A thought, a name, maybe not even human. And then she smiled, and then she climbed down, and then she left. I didn't scream that time. I couldn't. I woke with a new taste in my mouth, a taste of iron and salt and rain-wet stone. My tongue was sore. My lips were chapped. I could speak, but my voice was wrong. Lower, not quite mine, as if someone else was trying it on. When I answered my mother that morning, when she asked what cereal I wanted, I said cornflakes, but it came out slurred, twisted. She laughed. "Still half asleep?" I nodded, but I wasn't. I was more awake than I'd ever been. At school, the words kept coming out strange. I said "here" during roll call, but the sound that emerged was flat, dull, and dead, like I was mimicking myself. I raised my hand in English class to answer a question about poetry, some nonsense about metaphor, but when I opened my mouth, I said something else entirely. The roots grow deeper if you bury the mouth first. The class went silent. The teacher blinked. "Excuse me?" I didn't respond. I couldn't. I hadn't meant to say that. Something inside me had. That night, I told myself I wouldn't sleep. I made marks on my arms with a safety pin. I poured cold water on my head. I stared into the light until my eyes stung. But it wasn't enough. The paralysis came again, and so did she. This time she sat at the edge of the bed, one leg folded over the other, hands in her lap, her face more solid than ever, the skin tighter, less pale, her eyes almost human. She looked at me and said, with my voice, "You're getting smaller." She reached out. touched my cheek. "You'll be a memory soon." Her hand was warm, and I realized something I hadn't before. She wasn't cold. She wasn't dead. She was becoming me. In the morning, my mother asked if I'd taken her teacup. She said it had moved. She found it on the table beside my bed. I didn't answer, because I didn't know if I had taken it, because I didn't know if I was the one who'd gone to the kitchen. That afternoon, I stared at myself in the mirror and watched my mouth move without my permission. It whispered something, a word I couldn't understand, and then smiled. I did not smile. The face smiled on its own. I think she's inside now. I think she's practicing. Each night, a little more. Each night she uses my voice longer. Each night she teaches my limbs how to obey her. And I am shrinking, withering, falling inward like breath held too long. I don't know how much of me is left, but I do know this. Tomorrow morning, when my mother calls up the stairs, she will hear a voice answer back. It will be my voice, but I will not be the one speaking. Chapter 4. I watch from behind my eyes. When I woke this morning, I did not move, not because I couldn't, but because she had already moved for me. My body rose with a fluid grace it never had before. There was no yawning, no stretch, no groggy blink at the morning light, only a stillness, a calm I did not recognize. I watched, helpless and quiet, from somewhere deeper than bone. She stood at the mirror, or rather, I stood at the mirror, but I knew the difference now. The way a coat remembers the weight of its wearer, the way a glove knows the wrong hand. The reflection blinked, and it was not my blink. It smiled, and it was not my smile. And then it spoke. "Good morning," it said. Her voice tucked behind mine like a folded note, and behind my eyes I screamed. My mother did not notice. She smiled at me over eggs and toast, ruffled my hair. "Look who's finally sleeping through the night," she said. I nodded. She didn't see the way my fingers twitched with tension, not mine. She didn't hear the rhythm of breath too practiced, too slow, too old. "You're quiet lately." Still, I said nothing, because she was learning, she was watching, and I was buried somewhere inside. School was a stage. She moved me through the hallways like a marionette, each step precise, elegant, patient. The teachers called on me. I answered in riddles. The other kids noticed. "She's weird now," I heard one of them whisper, but no one stopped it. How could they? Even I couldn't. Inside my mind, I clawed at the walls. I tried to remember what it felt like to raise my own arm, to speak a word of my own choosing. But she was so loud in here, and I was so small. There were whispers now, always in the background, like moths flickering against a lampshade. Old names, ritual words, little rhymes she used to sing under her breath when she thought no one was listening. One for the shadow, one for the deep, one for the child who forgets how to sleep. That night I did not sleep. She did. My body, our body, curled beneath the blanket, and her breath slipped from my lungs. Measured, slow, ancient. But I stayed awake inside, pressed like a handprint against the window of my own skull. I watched as dreams unfolded behind my stolen eyes. Dreams of soil, of rotting teeth, of wooden boxes and hands that stitched mouths shut with red thread. I woke before she did, but I could not move. The worst came the next morning. My mother called up the stairs. Breakfast. The sound of her voice always comforted me. Not this time. Because when she answered, she used my voice, clear and clean. "Coming, Mom." It was cheerful, easy, too easy. And I felt it then, fully, finally, like the snap of a branch beneath too much weight. She wasn't wearing me. She was me. At breakfast, my mother asked how I was feeling. "It's better," I said. I didn't say it. She did. My mother smiled, and I knew she believed it. I watched from somewhere cold and small, like a locked drawer in an empty house. She reached for the butter with my hand, sipped tea with my lips, smiled with my face, and somewhere inside I wept without sound. She's kinder now. She's careful with my voice. She doesn't let the wrong words slip anymore. She's learned how to breathe like I used to. But sometimes, when the lights are off, she whispers lullabies into the dark, not for comfort, for rehearsal. And each night she hums a little louder, as if she wants me to remember what it was like when she was the one in the bed, and I was the one sitting at the end. Chapter 5. I had given up hope, I think, or at least I had given up the shape of it. Hope becomes strange when you are no longer allowed to move. It becomes thin and whispering, less like a fire and more like a flickering thread you loop around memories so they don't sink completely into the dark. I had become a passenger, a quiet watcher tucked into the back of my own eyes, while she lived in the front of them. Every breath she took with my lungs, every blink she performed with my lashes, pulled me further into the fog of what I used to be. Until yesterday. Until I saw the bird. It was in the old chest in the attic. She had taken us there to find winter coats. The temperature had dropped early, and my mother, ever eager to prepare, had asked for the scarves and gloves. She trusted her son to fetch them. Why wouldn't she? He was helpful now, polite, obedient, sleeping through the night. I felt myself walking through the attic dust, moving like mist in a shape she had learned to copy. I smelled the mould and the wood rot. I saw the thin spines of forgotten books. And then I saw it, the bird. Carved of pale cedar, no bigger than a fist. Its wings outstretched, painted clumsily with blue, though most of the colour had flaked away. One eye was a little bigger than the other. A thin crack split the tail. It was ugly, fragile, perfect. I had made it when I was 6. My grandmother helped me. She'd guided my little fingers along the grain, showed me how to file the edges so they wouldn't cut, told me all things made by hand remember their maker, even after you forget them. She had been gentle then. She had laughed when I got paint on my nose, and when I touched the bird in the attic, when her hands wrapped around it, I felt the first sting of something I thought was gone forever. Me. Not her. Me. A sound cracked through my head like a match struck in a cave. My fingers trembled, her fingers. She didn't want to touch it. She tried to put it back. I felt her hesitation, like a ripple inside the body. But I held on, and for one moment, one small blessed moment, I moved the hand on my own. It dropped the bird. I dropped it. It hit the attic floor with a soft, hollow knock. She gasped. I gasped. And then silence fell between us. A war inside a body too small for two. That night I did not sleep. She did. She curled into the blankets and breathed slowly, practiced, performed. But I stayed awake, awake within. I whispered to the part of myself that remembered carving that bird. I repeated its name, Hollowbill, a silly name, one she helped me choose. And I felt it again, the crack in the mask, the weak spot. She had taken everything, but not that. Not yet. The next morning my mother asked what happened to the little bird. I heard something fall. We lied. Just an old toy, she said. Nothing important. But my voice stuttered, just for a second. Just enough. My mother looked at me, frowned, only a flicker. But she saw it. Something not quite right. And I inside screamed, "See me. I'm still here. I'm still underneath." The bird now sits at the end of my desk. She put it there. I don't think she means to keep it. I think she's trying to destroy it. But she hesitates. Because I made it. And some part of her still remembers when I was hers. Not like this. Not like now. Back then, I was her boy. Now I am her cage. Tonight I will try again. I will touch the bird. I will speak its name, if she lets me, if I can, if I still have enough of myself left to speak at all. Chapter 6. The Crack in the Mask. The days are longer now. Not by the measure of sun or shadow, but by the ache of being watched from behind your own eyes. When every blink, every breath, every casual word spoken in your voice isn't yours, you begin to feel time differently. You begin to count it in gasps. I counted mine in the minutes I could remember the bird. In the shape of the beak, the chipped wing, the scent of the attic cedar. Every time I thought of Hollowbill, I felt the thread of myself pull tighter. Not much, but enough. She felt it too. That morning, she tried to throw the bird away. Tried. We stood over the bin behind the shed, fingers curled around the bird, her thumb pressing hard against its back, ready to let go, but I clung. Not with muscle, with memory. The sound of her laugh when I painted the bird's eye too big. The splinter I got carving its wing. The tiny note she'd written and hidden in its hollow belly. "You'll always be my boy." It was still inside, and now it was mine. She screamed, not aloud, not in a voice anyone else could hear, but in me, like a choir of knives dragged across porcelain inside my bones, a shriek of rage and rot and desperation. She dropped the bird. Our hand trembled violently. My wrist smacked against the edge of the bin. Blood bloomed, and I smiled, because that pain was mine. That night, she put us to bed early. I think she wanted to quiet me. Bury me again. She curled beneath the blanket and rocked slightly in the dark, a motion she had borrowed from the old chair. Her voice hummed lullabies under her breath, crooked and toneless things that once helped me sleep. Not anymore. I waited, until I felt her slipping, until her thoughts faded into the thick hum of sleep, and then I pushed. The paralysis came, the old weight, the crushing, endless stillness. But I had learned its edges now. I had traced the bars of this cage with trembling fingers, and I knew where it cracked. I focused on one thing, the pinky finger on my left hand. It was the finger she always held when she used to guide me across the street, the finger she called your little bird toe. That was mine. Mine. I screamed into the nerve. Move, nothing. I screamed louder. Move. And then a twitch. Small, imperfect, but I felt it. She stirred. I felt her mind rouse in the dark beside mine. She was confused, angry. She pressed down on me, hard. Her thoughts surged like teeth around mine, biting. She whispered my name in reverse as if that might undo me. But I pushed again. Move. The pinky curled, the hand spasmed, her breath hitched, and for the first time in weeks, I sat up. The room swam. The darkness writhed. The chair in the corner creaked, but it was empty. I looked down at my hands. They were mine, shaking, weak, but mine. And I could hear her screaming, not with sound, but with pressure, pounding against the walls of my head like fists on a locked door. I clutched the bird from the desk, held it to my chest. I'm not yours, I whispered. Her voice snapped through the dark like a whip. You were born mine. I opened the hollow of the bird. The note was still there, tattered, brown with age, but legible. I held it out to the shadows. Let her see. Let her remember. Let her hurt. You gave me away, I said. When you wrote this, you set me free. You just forgot. Silence. The chair stopped rocking, the air grew still, and for the first time in weeks, I felt alone. I woke the next morning sprawled on the floor. The bird was in my hand, my own hand. The house was quiet, too quiet. I went to the mirror, looked into my eyes, no movement I didn't recognize, no smile not my own, just a boy, exhausted, haunted, but alive. Still I hear her sometimes, in the hum of the refrigerator, in the sigh of the pipes. She's quieter now. Fainter, but I know she's not gone. She's waiting, just sitting at the end of the bed. Chapter 7. The days the chair stayed empty. For a time there was peace, a brittle, whisper-thin peace, but peace nonetheless, no rocking, no humming, no breath on my cheek that wasn't mine. I remember the morning I dared to believe it was over. The light slanted through the blinds in that particular way, soft and dusty, like buttered parchment. I blinked into it and found myself already upright in bed. No memory of the night before, no tightness in my throat, no stillness beneath the skin. I stood without effort. I looked at the chair. It was empty. The cushion had flattened. The wood no longer gleamed. The shape of it had returned to the plain and forgotten thing it once was. And I thought, she's gone. The first day back at school was ordinary in the strangest way. The teacher called my name. I answered. Myself. I joined a group in science class. I laughed. The sound startled me. Even the other kids seemed confused, as if my sudden return had disrupted some unspoken rhythm. You feeling better? One of them asked, and I said yes. They didn't press. No one ever does. Especially not when the truth feels like a sickness you might catch just by hearing it. My mother made spaghetti for dinner. I ate 3 bites before realizing I was hungry. Hungry. A need that belonged to me. She smiled across the table. You seem better. I think I am, I said, and for once I didn't wonder if I meant it. The days stretched on. 4 of them. Maybe 5. Each morning I woke under my own breath. Each night I climbed beneath the blankets with only my heartbeat for company. The dreams were quiet. The mirror held only my reflection. The chair did not move. She did not return. But then things began to shift. Small things. Imperfect things. Like a thread being pulled from a blanket so slowly it doesn't ripple until it's too late. The bird went missing. I hadn't moved it. It had sat beside my bed for a week, its cracked beak tucked beneath my reading lamp, its body worn smooth where my thumb rubbed it. Then it was gone. My mother said maybe it had fallen behind the dresser, but I checked. There was nothing, not even dust. That same night I awoke not in paralysis, but in the middle of sitting up. As if I'd already begun the motion in sleep. My hands were in my lap. My eyes were open. I had no memory of the movement. I waited. The air was still. The chair was empty, but in the corner of the room the curtains swayed. The window was closed. The next day my reflection blinked half a second before I did. Just once. I stared into the glass until my vision blurred, thinking I'd imagined it. But later, in the hallway mirror outside my mother's room, I caught my face grinning, before I told it to. And then the chair moved, a few inches, forward. I told myself it wasn't real, that I'd bumped it, that I was remembering shadows where there were none. But the next morning the cushions had been fluffed. The way she used to do it, 3 quick pats, 1 long press, her rhythm. Not mine. I opened the bird's hiding place in the attic chest. It had returned, but the note inside was gone. By the end of the week I began sleeping with the lights on. I told my mother it was for reading. She smiled and nodded. She didn't notice that I flinched every time she said good night. She didn't see the way I stared at the chair before I closed my eyes. She couldn't hear the creak that came again, slow, unsure, like something testing the weight of its old bones. But I heard it. The chair rocks again. Not every night, but some, and never while I'm watching. Only when my eyes close. Only when my breath stills. Only when I start to forget how close she used to sit. And I think, no, I know. She's waiting. For me to let go. For me to believe I'm safe. She's patient. She always was. Chapter 8. The Second Inheritance. They say the dead only come back if you let them. They say you have to open a door, invite them in, give them something of yours to hold. But I never invited her. I only loved her. And now that love feels like a door I left cracked open in a storm. No matter how tightly I shut it, no matter how many locks I turn, the wind still gets in. And last night, so did she. It began with the dream. At least, I think it was a dream. In it, I stood in the hallway outside my bedroom. The light was yellowed and humming. The wallpaper peeled slightly like dried skin. Her voice came from behind the door. "Come now," she whispered. "Just a moment. Let me show you something." My hand moved to the doorknob. It wasn't a hand anymore. It was small, pale, a child's again. "I've made room," she said. The door opened on its own. The room was not mine, not anymore. The chair sat at the centre, not in the corner, not at the foot of the bed, but centred, like a throne. She sat in it, not dead, not alive, wearing me. Her face bore my features now, but wrong, blurred at the edges like wet ink. My eyes blinked too slow. My mouth hung open slightly, as if trying to remember how to speak. She looked at me and smiled with my smile. "You don't use it right," she said. "You waste it." "What?" I asked. But the voice that came out wasn't mine either. It was hers. High and reedy, frayed with dust. I stepped backward. She stood. Her movements were smoother than mine had ever been, like she'd been practicing behind my skin. "You're just a boy," she said, "but I have always known what to do with a body." I woke up screaming. I had clawed at my own arms in my sleep, blood crusted beneath my fingernails. The chair rocked once, then stopped. I didn't sleep the next night, or the night after. But exhaustion is a thief. It waits until you've forgotten the feel of danger, and then it slips in. On the third night, I slipped too. And she was waiting. Not in the corner. Not in the chair. Inside. I felt her rise from the base of my spine, like smoke through floorboards, like water swelling beneath locked doors. She filled me. I felt my hands move, slow and elegant, like a pianist. My lips curled, my eyes blinked on their own, and my voice whispered, "I'm home." I screamed beneath the surface, but the sound never reached air. I pressed against the walls of my mind, but they were soft now, like silk soaked in rot. And she laughed. It came out in my voice, but it was not mine. "Stop fighting," she said. "You're just the scaffolding." She turned our head toward the window. We watched the moon rise. It was the first thing she'd seen with my eyes when she died. The moon, then the ceiling, then me, that night in her bed, holding her hand. She had slipped away beneath it, but not all the way. Never all the way. Morning came, the light returned. My mother called up the stairs and my body answered. "Coming," the voice chirped. Her voice, from my mouth. Too light, too smooth. I tried to scream, but I was too deep now. She moved with purpose, with poise, and I felt like driftwood bobbing behind her thoughts. As she brushed our hair, as she tied our shoes, as she hummed the song she used to sing when she thought I was asleep. She's stronger now. stronger than last time, more sure. She speaks to me only in my dreams, but her voice echoes into the day. I gave you life, now give it back. I think she believes this is fair, that she is only taking what was always hers. I don't know how long I have, but I do know this. Last night she stood in the mirror, and I did not see myself, not even a flicker, only her, smiling, wearing me, as if she'd finally found the fit just right. Chapter 9. The fire in the hollow. She has grown bold. She no longer mimics. She no longer hides. She walks with my stride, but adds her own grace. She laughs when I wouldn't. She lingers in mirrors longer than necessary, watching herself, as if admiring the craftsmanship. Some days I wonder if I still exist at all, or if I'm just the echo that hasn't yet faded. But I'm still here, buried in the farthest corner of my skull. And I remember, that's the part she can't erase. She wears my flesh, but she cannot touch the things I made. Not truly, not him. I found the bird again, Hollowbill. She had hidden it in the crawl space beneath the stairs, buried beneath old shoes and ruined linens. I think she meant to forget it, or feared what it meant. But when she slept, when I surfaced for a few blessed moments, I clawed my way back to it, held it, pressed it to my chest. And something deep within me stirred. The memory of small hands shaping wings, the warm weight of her palm guiding mine before all this, before she became something that would wear me like a coat. The day I put the note inside, the day she whispered, "This little thing will always know who you are." And I realized the bird wasn't just a toy, it was a piece of me she had given away before she died, a key. The next night I let her in. I welcomed the paralysis. Did not fight it. I waited in the hollow behind my eyes as she settled into my limbs. She stretched, she hummed. She opened our eyes and saw it. The bird, sitting on the chest, upright, watching. Her smile faltered. She reached for it, but the hand stopped halfway. I pulled. Not the hand, the memory. Every moment I had ever held that bird, every word she had spoken in that old living voice, every story she whispered into the cracks of the wood. I gathered them like kindling, and I lit them. The pain was immediate, fire in the bones. My ribs clenched, my teeth ground together, but she screamed louder, a shriek that shattered through the skull, not with sound, but with splinters of thought. She clawed inward, tried to shove me back down, but I held the bird to her heart, and I burned. It wasn't real fire. There were no flames. Only memory, fierce and wild and mine. I poured every moment of my life into the space where she had made her home. The time I skinned my knee on the garden stones, the time I buried a robin and cried until dusk, the first time I tasted snow, all the parts of me that had nothing to do with her. She howled, she slipped, she tore, and for one breathless second, I was alone. I opened my eyes, truly opened them. Not hers, mine. My throat burned, my hands were shaking, but the bird lay still in my lap, warm with the heat of something old and fading. I looked at the mirror, saw my face. Only mine, only mine. My mother knocked on the door. "You okay, sweetheart?" I hesitated, then yes. My voice cracked. She noticed. "Want me to come in?" "No," I said quickly, too quickly. "I'm fine." A pause, then footsteps retreating. I turned back to the chair. It hadn't moved. It sat still and quiet, no longer rocking. But in the cushions I saw a single grey hair, and I knew she was not gone, just driven back, just wounded. She is quieter now, but I can feel her. Waiting behind the eyes, pressed thin against the walls of my mind. She will try again, but next time I'll be ready. Next time I won't burn her out with memory. Next time I'll bury her. Chapter 10. The Voice That Spoke First. It has been 42 nights since I last felt her inside me. 42 nights of restless sleep. Yes, but sleep unclaimed, sleep unoccupied. The bird still sits beside the bed. The note is gone forever, but I don't need it now. I've memorized the words, down to the slant of each letter. "You'll always be my boy." She thought that meant ownership, but I think it was something else. A confession, maybe. A spell. A warning. I keep the bird close, though some mornings I wake and find it turned ever so slightly, as if it has been watched in the night, or has watched something itself. I speak with more care now. I weigh my words like stones in the mouth. If I laugh too quickly, I stop. If I sing, I catch myself halfway through the tune, because she liked to sing. She enjoyed the way sound curled from my lungs, settled in my teeth. She admired my voice. She once said it was pure. I don't want to give her reasons to come back. The chair remains. It hasn't rocked in weeks. Sometimes I dream it does. But in the waking world, it sits still. Dust has begun to settle in the crease of the cushion. A good sign, I think. Or maybe she's just letting me get comfortable. Maybe she's learned patience. My mother says I'm myself again. That something changed, that the light came back into my eyes. She says she doesn't know how or why, but I look stronger. I nod when she says these things, smile when she hugs me, but I never meet her eyes in mirrors anymore. Not quite, not fully, just in case. And sometimes, just sometimes, there are small things I cannot explain. A spoon left in the sink when I don't remember eating, mud on my shoes after a dreamless night, the sound of footsteps leaving the room rather than entering. I tell myself it's sleepwalking, leftover nerves, that she's gone. But there are moments just before I drift off when I feel her watching. Not from the foot of the bed, not from the chair, from inside, as though she's curled small and thin as breath, lodged behind the folds of thought, waiting for the one moment I'll forget the sound of my own voice, the moment I'll speak and the words won't come from me. Tonight, I heard myself say something, aloud, in the dark. I don't remember choosing the words, but I know what they were. The same thing she whispered the first night she came back. Not yet. You're awake now, or at least you think you are. Sometimes it's hard to tell the difference between dreaming and remembering, between what's yours and what's wearing your face. If your room feels colder tonight, if your reflection lingers a little too long, don't panic. It's probably nothing. Just tuck your feet under the blanket, nice and tight. She only ever sits at the end,